This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you to like and share them on social media and with all your friends. Because Nutrition World in downtown Fort Pierce presents at this time Joanne's World of Nutrition with Joanne Seeger.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Happy Thursday. Well, I am beyond excited about my guest this morning. Every time I have her on, I feel like an hour isn't enough. I don't think a week would be enough. She's super informative, really just going to give you lots of info. So you definitely are going to want to take notes with this one, okay? It's really going to be a great show. And we will skip the breathing exercise for this morning because I don't want to waste any time. But I just got to mention real quick, if you want to see Dr. Chris at the store, he is booking fast. So through the rest of the year, we're full in November, and I think we have a couple spots left for December. So if you're trying to get an appointment with him, please call soon, because then we're going to be looking at mid-January for the next time. All right, so done with the housekeeping. So let's get Cheryl Meyers from Eurofarmer Terry Naturally on the line. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning. It's such a delight to be able to visit this morning.
Yes. Oh, I am so thrilled. I just, you have graced me with being on the show many times, and I feel like, oh gosh, there's so much that you know and that we want to cover or need to cover. So let's get right into it. How does that sound?
That sounds like a fantastic idea.
All right, so I don't know, but I woke up at 4:47 and I just had A's on my mind. I don't know, sometimes when I go grocery shopping, I get a little OCD about my shopping list, almond milk, avocados, apples, and I just get into this whole weird alphabet thing. So I feel like it's happening to me with the show because I want to talk about Andrographis, ashwagandha, Adaptra. So I'm thinking holidays, we're already starting to feel financial pressures, stressors, just getting things done. How does that sound if we start in that angle?
That sounds absolutely great. In fact, I was thinking that this is the perfect time of year to start talking about stress.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Not that
absolutely.
we haven't had it over the last 2 years, but
Right, because it's been a cakewalk up until now.
Oh my God, yeah, just an easy thing. Yeah, but I was, where, we had the 4 kids, and I'm thinking, okay, presents and everyone, talking about shortages and all this. I don't know if it's true or not because everything I needed I could get, but yeah, it's stressful. You see all the cha-ching. So.
Well, you know what a lot of people don't understand is that there is more than one kind of stress. Stress is a great big bucket, and it holds a lot of different kinds of things. And there's 2 basic categories of stress, and it's distress. We know what distress is. Distress is when you're late for work, it's raining out, and you have a flat tire. That is a lot of distress. Distress is when you get called into the boss's office and you find that you and 30 of your coworkers have been downsized. That's distress. But there's also something called eustress. And eustress is EU, not just the letter U, but EU meaning euphoria or, meaning good or happy. Eustress are stressful events that we don't identify as stressful. I mean, we don't think of them as a negative event. So eustress could be the holiday season, Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holiday you celebrate. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of disruption of our usual routine. There's changes in our sleep patterns. There's changes in our dietary patterns. There's people that we may love to see, but there's a lot of stress on seeing those people for short periods of time before they drive back to their hometown. So there's a lot of eustress around the holidays. And unfortunately, eustress can be really hard, not as hard on the body as distress, but definitely hard on the body because it causes adrenal firing. So we have these 2 awesome glands in our body that sit on top of our kidneys, one on each side, and they're called adrenal glands. And adrenal glands make hormones that communicate to our body how we are supposed to respond to stress. So I always say that the thyroid gland is, I'm jumping around a bit.
It's
the thyroid
okay.
gland's the thyroid gland's the marathon runner, and the thyroid hormones dictate the amount of energy you need every day for your heart to beat and your lungs to pump and for you just to be alive. It's called basal metabolism. But the adrenal glands are in charge of emergency energy, and they create emergency energy via the release of certain stress hormones in response to emergencies. The problem is that our brain does not always communicate fully or fully perceive the depth of the emergency we're faced with. So we always know these people that are cool and calm and collected, right? I mean, you don't get, not whatever gets thrown at them, they're just like, poof, I'll take care of it, it'll be fine. You know, they never seem to have a hair out of place or get worked up. And then we know that there's other people that one little thing goes wrong. Maybe a button pops off of their jacket, and it's terrible to them. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've lost this button, and I'm supposed to go meet people. So people have varying responses to different types of situations that create stress. And that's why it's important to talk about it, about modulating our stress response, because it is exhausting. Our adrenal glands, when they pump out those stress hormones, and the other things that happen as a result, you know, that little lift in our blood pressure, that little lift in our heart rate, that little lift in our breathing, that little lift in, you know, how quickly our liver dumps sugar into our stored sugar into our bloodstream, all of those things, you know, take its toll on our body. And so I often tell people that you want to be like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You know, you don't want to sit in the chair that's too hard, and you don't want to sit in the chair that's too soft. You want one that's just right. And that's the same thing that's true when we talk about our response to stress. We don't want to over-respond to it because that creates a lot of havoc, even damage, even suppression of our immune system. We've all heard how stress can suppress our immune system. But we don't want to under-respond to it either. We want to be able to rise to whatever challenge comes our way. We want to be right there in that Goldilocks spot, just right. And that's why we talk a lot about a class of herbals and botanicals called adaptogens. So when we talk about adaptogens, the adaptogens are a handful of botanicals that have the rare power to help us adapt to stressful situations. So they don't take this, it's not like they take the stress away. It's not like a shot of tequila or a shot of bourbon where all of a sudden you're just warm and you're loosey-goosey and, you know, you just don't care as much. It's not like numbing you or doing something like that. It helps your body be resilient and strong even when stimulated by stress. And that's important because when we look at the survival of human beings alone and in groups, it's their ability to adapt to their surroundings that helps them to survive. So, you know, it used to be that human beings all huddled around the equator. You know, they huddled around places where it was warm and where game was plentiful. But human beings began to spread out, and now there's human beings that live in the Arctic Circle and, you know, go through 24 hours of darkness in the wintertime and deal with sub-zero weather and seem hale and hearty. Well, why is that? Well, it's because they were able to adapt to these changing circumstances successfully and were able to spread out and to create a life there. So I'm not suggesting that people move to the Arctic Circle, but I am saying that that inborn ability that we all have to adapt to stressful situations, to have the internal physiological and psychological response to stress that helps us survive and thrive, that is an inborn characteristic that we don't talk about. But it's just as physical and it's just as present as your cardiovascular system or your kidney filtration or your lungs, you know, pulling oxygen out of the air. It is a system in our body, and there are a handful of botanicals that can strengthen that system. And it's as I said, it's a little hard to explain, and a lot of people haven't heard of that before. But by helping our bodies be able to adapt to the changing environment, to psychological and physiological stressful situations, allows us to be less exhausted, allows us to have a better mood, allows us to sleep better at night, allows us to be physically stronger, allows us to resist the assault of viruses and bacteria. You know, there's just a whole host of trickle-down benefits of keeping your stress response strong, and healthy.
That's a wonderful explanation. And I was talking to my husband this morning about adaptogens and how what I love about Terry Naturally is that you have to really make sure you're getting these botanicals from the places that they do go through the stressors correctly, so they do become the amazing, miraculous herbs that they are. So it is really important, that the botanicals that Cheryl's about to talk about, that you understand that you can't take it like if its origin, is in a forest and, goes through harsh weather and all this, and then just try to cultivate it in your backyard in a greenhouse might not be the same.
No, and, very often the compounds that the plants create to protect themselves, because plants have to adapt, correct? Plants have to adapt to maybe half their leaves are chewed away by insects, or maybe there's a lengthy, cloudy time where they don't get sunshine for days in a row, or maybe the cold weather, this is happening in Green Bay right now, the temperatures drop at nighttime, but they come back up into nicer temperatures during the daytime. Plants have to adapt to that, and so they make certain plant compounds to help them adapt. And so that's why some of these are so incredibly powerful for humans, is because those very same compounds help us. So the first A on your list, I think the first thing you mentioned was ashwagandha.
Yeah.
All right, so I love ashwagandha. That's a mouthful of a plant name to say. They couldn't have just named it Susie or Bill. Nope, it's ashwagandha. So ashwagandha is an absolutely amazing herb. It's a part of a medical system in India called Ayurveda. Now, Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, they kind of have this friendly feud going over which one is the oldest system of continuous practice in the world. And they're both over 3,000 years old. So I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that one. However, let's just say that when we look at Ayurvedic medicine, it has been in continuous practice for over 3,000 years, and ashwagandha is one of the crown jewels, one of the strongest tools in the toolbox of Ayurveda. Ashwagandha actually means smells like a horse. Now, I've sniffed ashwagandha. I don't think it smells like a horse. But what I think that translation is not the best translation. I think it means essence of the horse. Like when we say smell of the horse, it means the essence of the horse. So when we think of a horse, what do we think? We think of incredible endurance and strength and courage. You think of a stallion, right?
Right.
So when it's named after the essence of a horse, it gives you an idea of how strong it can be. Now, it's been used for thousands of years, but some of the things that are recently have had more scientific research and shown incredible benefits have to do with stress management, increasing energy without making people twitchy. You can drink an energy drink like a Red Bull or a Monster or something. Will it increase your energy temporarily? But your heart's going to be pounding in your chest, and your hands are going to be shaking, and you might be super irritable. But this is a way of increasing energy without all of that twitchy kind of stimulation. It has been proven to improve mental function. It has especially the ability to pay attention and to work in mentally stressful situations. It has a little bit of an inflammation-reducing ability, which is always a good thing. There's studies on ashwagandha with impact on both anxiety and depression, and it can reduce cortisol levels, which is one of the stress hormones that our adrenal glands overproduce when we are in very stressful situations.
Right, and especially as a postmenopausal woman, cortisol is something you really start to learn about. It's
for sure.
That belly,
sure.
that hormonal belly.
Yeah, I tell people cortisol is not the devil. If your body didn't make cortisol, you would get sick and you would die. But the problem is the way that we live in our modern lives. And as a result of that, people tend to be big overproducers. Too much is going to be just as much of a problem as too little. It's that whole Goldilocks theory again. So when you have too much cortisol on board, you can have trouble sleeping. You can have a lot of anxiety. You're right. You start to get fat deposition around the waist. The blood sugar levels can go up because cortisol is trying to help you escape from the stressor, right? So it dumps sugar into your bloodstream. It raises your blood sugar so that you got more energy to burn. But we don't go out and burn it, do we? We're not wrestling a saber-toothed tiger. We're not running away from a forest fire. In those situations, cortisol is our friend. Yes, indeed, we want all that sugar in our bloodstream. No, what do? We go sit down and self-medicate with Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
And
Netflix.
scroll on social media, yeah.
Scroll on social media. So,
Our thumb is working hard.
But not enough to burn up all that extra sugar that's been dumped into the bloodstream, and so it gets turned into adipose tissue around the waist. So, yes, cortisol, too much cortisol is a problem as well. Now, I have to take a step away from the botanical world for just a moment and say there's so many other techniques to help with managing and being healthy in your response to stress. So I don't want to make it sound like eat terrible foods and be very sedentary and, but and don't even practice mindfulness, but just take a pill and it'll all go away. No, this is part of a plan. And you do need healthier eating, and you do need a reduction in sugar. Sugar is not always the healthiest thing when we are struggling with stress, but it's something that makes us feel good temporarily, and so sometimes we crave it. So it's one of those things that makes us feel better for a short period of time, but then actually damages us in the long run. So there's just a lot of other lifestyle things we can do. We've got to get up and get moving. That's the hardest thing to inspire people to do, especially in cold weather. Now, you don't struggle with that as much where you live as much as I do where I live in Wisconsin, but it's hard to get people motivated. Just go out and walk around the block one time. Just get up and move, because movement is one of the best things that we can do to help keep those stress hormones in the Goldilocks spot. If we don't move and we don't burn up some of that energy, then that energy gets turned into that twitchy, uncomfortable butterflies in your stomach, worrisome kinds of energy. So that's one of the things I encourage people to do. But so don't think that taking an herb is going to completely replace lifestyle interventions and mindfulness or transcendental meditation or yoga or whatever it is that you're using to help with your wellness plan, but it sure as heck helps. So when we look at ashwagandha, the compound in there that has been used by scientists, it's the strongest compound in ashwagandha, is called withanolides. And there's a whole family of withanolides. There's more than 40 that have been identified. So withanolides are the heavy lifters. The problem with ashwagandha is that when you look at extracts of ashwagandha, that's usually about a 3% to 5% amount of withanolides. So it has a little bit in there. The difference with our ashwagandha EP35, it's a unique standardization. It's the highest standardization in the industry. It's 7 times stronger than ordinary ashwagandha because it has 35% withanolides, and it's just such a huge difference. It has been used in published human clinical trials. One of them that was done with 60 people who were healthy. They were not diagnosed with a mental health disorder, but they reported high levels of stress. So they used our EP35 ashwagandha or a placebo for 2 months. And in the group that took the EP35 ashwagandha, 30 to 40% reduction in depression and anxiety scores. So even though they weren't diagnosed with a problem, they reported high levels of stress, still got dramatic reductions. 23% reduction in cortisol. 23%, that's huge.
That is huge.
Now, another interesting hormonal change, 11% increase in testosterone for men, but no increase in testosterone for women. Now, that's important because ladies are always concerned. They're always asking me, well, if it affects testosterone, am I going to get muscles like Popeye and grow hair on my face? No, it's not, but it's important for men because it is also closely tied to stress response and stress relief. And when testosterone starts to dip, when men get older, or in the presence of certain illnesses that make testosterone decrease a little bit, or when men carry a lot of extra weight around, that can decrease testosterone. So when they're struggling with testosterone, that can create that sort of sets the stage for higher levels of anxiety and distress. They also looked at, when I said about being overweight, 43 overweight men, ages 40 to 70, and they had mild fatigue. So that's what they came into the study for, was reports of, I'm just tired all the time. I'm still working, I'm still doing what I need to do, but I'm just tired. So they took the EP35 ashwagandha. Now this study was for 4 months. It was 16 weeks. And they saw a 14% increase in testosterone and an almost 13% reduction in fatigue. They also saw some increases in other hormones that are important in the body, like DHEAS. But I just thought that those were some amazing benefits for men that are struggling with mild fatigue and also somewhat overweight.
That is really cool, because most of the time men are really nervous about taking testosterone because of the negative side effects. So, yeah, if you can get a little increase naturally and, work with your body and not against it, that is phenomenal.
There's a big difference between the testosterone your own body makes and the way it's metabolized and the stages it progresses through versus injecting pure testosterone into your body. Now, for some men, that's a requirement. Maybe they've had testicular cancer and they need to augment levels because they can't make it themselves anymore. So there are times when injectable testosterone is needed, but you're right. If it's hard to get the dose just right, too high a dose, and you end up with anger issues and hair loss and, just a lot of bad things that men don't want to have to deal with. But increasing the ability of your body to make testosterone, that's pretty much universally a good thing.
Cheryl, what about, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just remembered a question that I'm asked so frequently now because, unfortunately, so many men are dealing with prostate cancer issues. After treatment, post-treatments, can they use this? Because, they're told by their doctors, we're blocking hormones, we're not letting, that's the cause. I'm not sure if I'm in agreement with that, but what is the, how does Terry and your company approach that subject?
Well, prostate cancer is not one disease. It's a couple of different varieties. Now, the most common variety is extremely slow growing, and men generally have tumors have prostate cancer of the slow-growing type. They can have it for 30 years without having any problems manifest themselves. So when men have that kind of prostate cancer, they're not on medication. They're doing what is called watchful waiting. That means that they're going to the doctor every 6 months or every year. They're measuring the prostate, and they're measuring something in their bloodstream called PSA, prostate-specific antigen. And if all of a sudden the prostate gets larger and the PSA levels go up dramatically, they know that the cancer is becoming more active, and then they may choose at that time to remove the prostate gland. Now, that's one kind of prostate cancer, and that's the vast majority of men with prostate cancer. There's also a smaller group of men who have a very aggressive prostate cancer that is very dangerous and potentially fatal. And so in those men, they are giving them drugs to block all testosterone activity because they're desperately trying to get that prostate cancer to settle down, either to trying to get to a cure or at least to give these men a longer period of time to live. So if you have that kind of prostate cancer, absolutely don't take anything at all, without talking to your oncologist or your healthcare provider or your integrative health doctor, or talk to someone about what makes sense in your regimen. If you are in the other group of men who are in watchful waiting, no, this is not going to create the kind of testosterone that will cause some kind of a big flare in prostate cancer. There's been a lot of studies of ashwagandha that have been published. They have never noted that it changes PSA levels or stimulates prostate growth or causes a problem for prostate cancer.
Wonderful. Okay, so on that note, we're going to take a really quick break and get right back to you. So catch your breath, Cheryl, and then I see Andrographis on the horizon for discussion. All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick break. Come visit us in Kraz Corner, because the old arcade building, we have some really cool boutique. Carol has this beautiful Christmas shop with all this homemade good stuff, and Jarvis Boutique, really cool clothing and gifts. So come check us out. And now for a quick commercial. Be right back. Hi, this is Joanne from Nutrition World, hoping that you visit my store and wellness center. We have incorporated cutting-edge services to help you feel better. Check out my online store at joannesnutritionworld.com. Really great deals and free shipping over $50. I am really hoping that all my listeners are taking time right now to get fresh air, to get exercise into their daily routine, keep hydrated, and get the proper amount of sleep. It's critical right now that attitude is everything. To please take time to laugh, to give yourself a break. You can find Nutrition World right on on US 1 in Fort Pierce, across from Fort Pierce City Hall, in between Orange Avenue and Avenue A. Our phone number is 772-464-3598. Call me with any questions or concerns. All my best, Joanne.
Joanne's Nutrition World, now open from 10 to 4, Monday through Saturday. Call 464-3598.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
Welcome back to Joanne's World of Nutrition. Once again, here's your host from Joanne'sNutritionWorld.com, Joanne Seeger.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. I really appreciate all my listeners. I feel like I've seen a lot of listeners in the last 2 weeks, so hi to all you guys that visit me and really make that effort. I love seeing my listeners and just really talking to them about all the years and all the shows. So please come in and visit. Cheryl, you are probably making my listeners take tons of notes because you're giving us so much info. So if you did have any final points about the ashwagandha, I didn't want to cut you short, but Andrographis is becoming my favorite go-to, in the last few months. So we definitely want to cover all that miraculous material. So carry on.
All right. Well, one last quick thing before we leave ashwagandha and move on to Andrographis. I just wanted to mention that some people are worried that if it improves strength and energy and stamina, that it will keep them awake at night. It does exactly the opposite. It turns out that when you handle stress better, you sleep better. They did a 6-week study specifically on our ashwagandha EP35. That's the one that has that very high standardization of with analytes, and they found that it was a 72% improvement in sleep quality. 72%.
That's huge.
So that means that people are waking up more restored. They're waking up more refreshed. It's not going to knock you out and put you to sleep, but when you sleep, you're going to sleep in a healthier manner, and so when you wake up, you're going to feel better. So that's a win-win-win for me. More energy in the daytime, better sleep at night. Sign me up.
It's a perfect, like you say, that Goldilocks perfect balance.
It sure is.
So,
it sure is. So
when Terry came out with the ashwagandha andrographis, I was thinking to myself, why did they put those two together? And so that's why when I dreamt of the A's, I was like, how perfect. She can talk about both of them together.
Absolutely. So then let's move on to andrographis. And people get these two herbs confused all the time because, good Lord, they're like 4 syllables, right? And they start with A. So andrographis is also a really important herb in that Ayurvedic medicine. It has an amazing amount of properties. Now, andrographis has been called the king of bitters. Now, you may think that that's not a compliment, but in botanical medicine, a lot of plant healers associate the bitterness of the plant with the strength of the plant. So if it has some bitterness, they're thinking, well, it's got those compounds in it that are medicinal. That means that when they say that, when the nickname is King of the Bitters, it's not because of the taste, although it is really, really bitter. This is not one you're going to chew up. But it is, they're saying it's the strongest of the strong. It's the most powerful of the powerful. Andrographis has been studied for heart and arteries. It lowers blood pressure. It prevents pain and inflammation. It soothes different kinds of digestive disorders. A lot of Ayurvedic practitioners use andrographis for irritable bowel issues. It is one of my most favorite liver herbs. We are in an epidemic of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's called NAFLD. And that's where fatty deposits accumulate in the liver, and they interfere with proper liver functioning. Now, what is that stimulated by? Usually blood sugar and genetics, and lack of activity. And so we see that what used to be, when I first started working in the mainstream medical world, which was many moons ago, I had never seen a case of NAFLD. I knew it existed. I had seen alcoholic liver disease. I had seen liver disease as a result of drug addiction with these different I'd seen cirrhosis of the liver. I had never seen NAFLD. In the last 10 years, there's probably not a week that goes by that somebody isn't contacting me saying, my doctor says I have fatty liver changes or I have fatty liver disease. What do I do? Andrographis is one of the most powerful, that and our Curamed, those two together are my two go-tos for people who are struggling with liver. It has some great anti-cancer benefits, but it also helps to strengthen your immune defenses. So Andrographis is one of those amazing adaptogens that I always think of it more as a powerhouse. I think of ashwagandha as strengthening and relaxing and quieting in some ways, whereas I think of Andrographis as more like strong and forceful and muscular when it comes to their activities in the body. Andrographis has a number of studies looking at its antiviral activities. So when we look at, for example, people that are suffering the common cold, you're going to see a much faster resolution of that disease than when people that are not treated with Andrographis. There's also been a study on andrographilide. You know, every botanical has their little happy family of compounds that do a lot of the heavy lifting, and in Andrographis it's called andrographilide. And they have done some preliminary studies, and they found that it actually blocks the receptor sites on our cells that COVID-19 specifically targets. So in order for that virus, that COVID virus to cause damage, it has to get inside our cells. It has to attach to a cell. I think of it as has to attach to a doorway, and it has to pry that doorway open so it can get inside the cell. Well, if you can block that doorway so it can't get inside, it just floats around in the bloodstream until the immune system can destroy it. It also has been shown to have antiviral activity in other viruses. It's been shown, they did a study in people who have HIV, which is human immunodeficiency virus. That's the infection that can lead to AIDS. And they found that it increases helper T cells. It also increases the activity of macrophages, B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, just all those really good things we need for a healthy immune response. So, you know, Andrographis is really great for strength and for stamina and for, you know, keeping our liver healthy and keeping our immune defenses strong. There's also been some examination of Andrographis having to do with brain function and focus. And so researchers decided, well, let's combine the Andrographis and the ashwagandha and see what happens when it comes to mild cognitive impairment. So mild cognitive impairment means your brain isn't working quite like it ought to. You're having more significant memory problems, not where did I leave my car keys, but a little bit more like, oh my God, I didn't pay the bills last month. You know, so it's not the level of dementia, but it's definitely interfering with healthy functioning. So they looked at people ages 60 to 75 with mild cognitive impairment. They gave our specific combination for 4 weeks, and then they did this test called an EEG. So that stands for electroencephalogram. Now that's a non-invasive test, and if you've not had it yourself, you've seen it on TV. It's where they stick these little wires with this little paste onto your scalp, and then it records. It almost looks like a seismograph, you know, and it records these spikes and these valleys on a piece of paper. And the different ways the different parts of the brain are stimulated and active means that there is going to be a different pattern that you see on the EEG. And then they also did another test called the D2 test for cognitive attention. That's the ability to make decisions rapidly and to find mistakes. What they found is that in this study, now remember, this is only 4 weeks, so this is pretty fast for a botanical study. They found that there was a significant increase in the brainwave patterns that were associated with calm and relaxation. So really improving that area. But after only 2 weeks, they saw significant improvements in mental function. All of a sudden, they were able to do that D2 test for cognitive attention with fewer mistakes and with greater speed. So this is just one study. I'd like to see more of this combination. So I love this. I love each of them on their own. I love Andrographis on its own. I love ashwagandha on its own. But when you put them together, you are helping your immune system. You are helping focus and concentration. You are helping with your Goldilocks response to stress. So I think it really is a fantastic matchup.
Now, Cheryl, with a lot of my listeners, maybe even myself, are hearing that about the mental thing, you know, having a dad that suffered dementia before he passed. You know, it's a little scary. So someone like me might be thinking, well, oh my gosh, I'll just take 6 a day. Like, so compared to Terry's formula where the Andrographis and the ashwagandha is combined, do you know as far as the study amounts, like how many we would have to take a day to match that amount?
Well, that would be 2 a day. You really don't have to megadose on this. One of the things I love about working for Europharma and with the Terry Naturally brand is that, number one, we pretty much sell the dosages that have been used in the published human clinical trials. I know you've seen this too, where somebody comes out and says, look at this, fantastic, XYZ, clinically proven to turn your hair blonde, or whatever it is, right? And then you look at the study, and it's 500 milligrams of XYZ, and what they're selling is 15 milligrams of XYZ.
Exactly, or less.
So
yeah.
that always honks me off a little bit. I was like, come on, people. But, he pretty much sells the dosages used in the studies. The other thing is, you've got to remember, especially with that ashwagandha, that is 7 times stronger than garden variety ashwagandha. So when you take 100 milligrams of ashwagandha of the EP35, it's like taking 700 milligrams of plain, garden variety ashwagandha based on the standardizations. And then our Andrographis EP80 has a very high standardization as well. So it's really not about how much you take, but the quality of what you're taking. Are you really getting those compounds on board that are going to make a significant difference in your health and your functioning? So yes, you just don't have to make a dose on this. One a day is fine for some individuals, but if you're dealing with an issue, you can certainly go up to 2. If you're a very large person, maybe you feel you need a 3rd dose. That's okay. It's not going to hurt you, but probably not necessary.
Wow, and the price point is really economical. I would say that some people, I'll tell them all about all the studies and how it's, a lot of double-blind placebo-controlled studies and all this great stuff, and then they see the price and like, wow, but it's so inexpensive. And I'm like, I know it is, but it really does all these things. Isn't that crazy how some people equate price to authenticity, But
well, we run into that all the time because we are not a particularly low-priced line. But, sometimes things that are high quality do cost more. Like our curcumin, you can go out and buy turmeric in the spice shop and sprinkle it on your food for pennies. You're going to pay a lot more to get our clinically studied Curamed 750. That's, you'd have to take 200 to 500 capsules of plain turmeric to equal the amount that you get absorbed from one Curamed 750. So there's a big difference sometimes in price for certain types of medicinal items. But we really try very hard we have a set formula within our company. We know how much the raw materials cost. We know how much it makes to manufacture and ship and market, et cetera. And then we don't do dramatic markups. So all of our markups are the same. So if we can do well if we are encountering a really powerful herb and it happens to not be particularly high priced, we pass that on to the customers. The president and founder of our company, Terry Lemeron, said something once that I have stolen frequently. He said that the most expensive dietary supplement you ever buy is the one that does absolutely nothing for you.
Exactly.
And I don't care if you pay $2.99. If it doesn't do anything for you, you've just thrown away $2.99. That's one of the things that you need to look for when you're buying supplements, whether it's ours or anyone's, is has it been used in published human research? Is that research published in peer-reviewed journals? Are there special adaptations that have been made to make sure that it has enough of the heavy lifters in the botanical in order to provide health benefits? Is it absorbable? Are there studies done on dissolution and disintegration on every single batch to make sure that they properly dissolve and release their nutrients? So there's a lot of different factors that go into making sure that when you buy a Terry Naturally product, you're really going to get those benefits.
Not to mention money-back guarantee.
Absolutely.
Well,
and
go
that's
ahead.
From Terry. Yeah, that's from Terry because
and it's awesome.
Always said it's awesome. If a lot of people say, well, don't you have a trial size? Every product we sell is a trial size. If you decide you want to use Andrographis, let's just say you're taking it because you're having some liver issues. You start taking Andrographis and you use it for 3 months and it does absolutely nothing for you. You can bring all of that back. We will refund your money. The reason we can afford to do that is we get very few returns for those reasons because most people do see.
Yeah, I barely get any returns. Yeah. And I love that. And I would say that we could probably talk about 3 hours about Terry and just everyone at the company, how they work so hard, the facility, and all that testing. But I wanted to know if you can tell the listeners about the acetaminophen study with Andrographis, how Andrographis did on that study. I don't want to put you on the spot, but how's that one?
Well, acetaminophen is the generic name of an over-the-counter drug that most people recognize as Tylenol. But that's also sold under, like, Walmart has their own brand. I don't know what it's called, but or the drugstore, CVS has their own brand of acetaminophen. And I remember back when there was Kmart, they had an acetaminophen called Kanol. So acetaminophen is one of the most toxic substances on the planet for your liver. Now, if you took 2 Tylenol for a headache 6 months ago, please don't be worried right now that you've damaged your liver forever and ever. You haven't. But the problem comes with consistent use. And doctors have long promoted acetaminophen as the safe alternative to, like, ibuprofen and aspirin, because it does not tear up your stomach. So when we look at the problem with that is, it's very gentle on your stomach, but it also is really, really hard on your liver. And the problem with acetaminophen is the range of dosage for which it provides benefits, like reduction in pain. It's not an anti-inflammatory. People make that mistake all the time. It does not reduce inflammation. So that's why I hate it for arthritis, because arthritis is an inflammatory disease, but people take it like crazy. It does not reduce inflammation, but it does reduce pain. So they're looking at, that dosage versus the dose that becomes toxic to your liver is really close. And so we see that the number one overdose seen in emergency rooms across America is acetaminophen. And most people the majority are not trying to harm themselves. They just took too much, didn't realize they were getting too close to the toxic dose, because it's in everything. It's in cold and flu formula. So let's say you have issues with you've got a back injury, and your doctor has you on a narcotic, Vicodin. Well, Vicodin is a narcotic in a base of Tylenol or acetaminophen. And let's say that you have a headache, you're coming down with something, so you pop a couple extra strength Tylenol, so there's 1,000 milligrams of acetaminophen, and then you think, I'm coming down with a cold, I'm going to take this liquid cold and flu formula, and there's another 1,000 milligrams of acetaminophen. You put those all together, and your liver starts to shut down. So you see a lot of overdoses. You also, the number one cause of acute, meaning sudden onset liver failure in America, is acetaminophen. So, of course, it's interesting to try to find, if you can protect the liver from damage from acetaminophen, that's a pretty darn powerful botanical, and that's what they found with Andrographis, is that when they were doing studies of hepatocytes, which are liver cells, they found that it can completely antagonize the toxic effects of acetaminophen on certain liver enzymes, like alkaline phosphatase and GOT and GPT, those things that show up on your liver studies when you have a liver panel. And so it is incredibly powerful for protecting the liver. So I'm thinking, especially if you have liver issues, or even if you don't have liver issues but you're over 50, if you're over 50, your liver's not detoxing quite as strongly as it used to, that using something that protects your liver from acetaminophen, think how much it can protect against other things that can cause problems with your liver as well. Because that was really an amazing study.
It was. I mean, I read it like 4 times, like with my jaw open. Like, I was like, wow, like how much it would help people to get the pain relief, not hurt the liver, not be worried about a high fever. Like, it's just a win-win. It's just really miraculous.
And Andrographis has some pain-relieving benefits itself. So here you've got something that not only helps protect the liver, but also helps with pain. And then you put with that, the only thing that I ever recommend acetaminophen for, I actually think it should be prescription only. I don't think it should be over the counter, because there's
totally
problems
agree.
with it.
Yep.
But it is really good for reducing fevers. So if you've got a child that goes into seizures when their fever gets too high, there might be some use for acetaminophen suppositories, having some in your fridge for emergencies. Yes, you can use it in that instance when it's in that situation. But for pain relief, gosh, there's so many more things that we have at our fingertips that can make such a huge difference. Like, We have that new Curamed Acute Pain that works in less than an hour. People in about a half hour, 45 minutes are like, wow.
Cheryl, I am so glad you brought that up. I have a phenomenal testimonial for that one. My 11-year-old daughter, and so my 11-year-old daughter, she is like 5'5" and, like adult weight, but she got thrown off a golf cart Friday. They wanted to actually airlift her to the trauma unit. She got thrown to the ground on the cement, and corner of the golf cart landed on her and brought her into the ER, had her in the neck brace, the whole thing. It was so scary, right? And as things calmed down, as all the testing went on, they realized it was mainly head trauma, and thankfully her thigh caught the brunt of the weight of the golf cart. So it was more of muscle trauma and head trauma, and so she needed a couple staples in her head. But bottom line is that because I had a bad experience when she had her tonsils out with pain drugs, so I've always been skeptical, but, and sometimes they look at you like you're a child abuser if you don't give them what they prescribe. So, so the doctor says right in front of Elena, okay, this is the prescription pain stuff, and you need to give it to her every day, starting right now. And Elena says, Mom, I know you're not going to give me the liquid cocaine. And I'm like, oh my God, the doctor looked at me like, what? And I said, no, we just had a bad experience. We got the wrong prescription last time, and it was too strong for her size, and it almost hurt her. But that's another story, a different doctor, no big deal. And I just took the prescription like, yes, of course I'm going to give my daughter pain pills. But of course I didn't, and I just used the acute pain pills that I always have at home. And do you know, she had no pain. I did it every 4 or 5 hours. She never needed anything stronger. She slept well. A slight headache pop up, I give her another one. But she, this is almost a week as of tomorrow, and all she's used is acute pain gels, and she's healing phenomenally.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to hear that. That's so scary.
I know, but what a great story, huh? I just realized that when you brought it up. Well, it is a great story
to have that much trauma and to do that well with the Curamed Acute Pain. The other thing is the curcumin and the boswellia in that formula are very beneficial for the brain as well. They help with brain trauma, brain swelling. So not only is it helping with the pain, I'm hoping it's going to help her recover from, did you say concussion?
No, she didn't. She just, where she landed, the doctor says she was phenomenally, miraculously lucky. Just where she landed on the head, same thing. Other than making a gaping hole that bled, that was so scary, but common with a head bleed. But so it was swollen, showing trauma, but nothing that couldn't be just fixed with time and rest.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
But I give so much credit to that acute pain relief. I really do. I love those. And so easy to swallow. All my people that have swallowing issues with pills, they love the size and the convenience. So.
And, in addition to that, instead of hurting your liver, it actually helps promote liver health.
Right. What a concept.
Right?
Oh, my gosh. So, Cheryl, I think we've got just a couple minutes left. So do you want to go more into the acute pain gel, or since I cut you off with my story?
No. Oh, no, that's okay. The acute pain formula, it's in a gel cap, as you said. It's these tiny little gel caps. They're fast dissolve, so it goes to work really quickly. It's in a patented system that was just developed last year, where you take our BCM95 curcumin, which is the most clinically studied enhanced absorption curcumin in the world, with our uniquely standardized boswellia. They whip it into a black sesame oil, so it's something of a froth, and all the particles are suspended, and it really facilitates how quickly it gets into the bloodstream and goes to work. Fantastic formula, and much better than using a lot of these over-the-counters for pain.
What a perfect way to end the show. As always, Cheryl, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to having you back. And happy, awesome season. Let's celebrate the holidays and enjoy, and all my best to you and everyone at Terry Naturally.
And to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Take care, everyone. All right, next week I'll be back, of course, so give me a call. Let me know any ideas you have at 464-3598. Thanks, everybody.
Joanne's World of Nutrition with archives on YouTube. Look for Joanne's playlist at WPSLTV.com, which is our YouTube presence.